Before we get started, want to say some thank yous. First and foremost to Public Utility Law Project, to Andrew and Lori for being here today, this evening to give the presentation to us. And I also want to thank Nick and Fabian from the Senators team also for their work on helping make this event possible. It's super appreciated. And yeah, we're excited to partner to talk with you all today. It's really important for us that we can make clear for you what options you have to tackle utility debt, raising utility costs. And also, I think an important part of this event is to show that you're not alone in dealing with these rate hikes and with bearing this debt if you have it. This is really an issue that affects our own community, and the reason that we're in this position in the first place, just to talk bigger picture before we begin, the reason that we're in this predicament in the first place is because private utility companies have monopolized their services. If you want gas, if you want electricity, there's only one place that you can go for those, where we live, and these companies don't think twice about raising their rates because they know that ultimately we have to pay them. And with these costs rising, it's not, it suggests that this is only going to increase, get worse, and we don't want that to happen. And it's just not a sustainable, trajectory. So, as we're going forward, I would encourage people in the back of their mind to think about what our society would look like if everyone had everything that they needed, if we all had our fundamental needs met, and that includes, you know, having these utilities. And, you know, what the senator thinks this could look like, what our team thinks this could look like is utilities that are publicly owned, and utilities, publicly owned utilities that would guarantee service to you at a low cost, or even better, for free, instead of these companies trying to make profits off of us. And this is the case already in other places, and that could be reality for us too. So if that's something that we want for ourselves, we should definitely think about that, and you should definitely let our office know if that's something that you're interested in fighting for, because those types of changes don't happen on their own and they don't happen overnight. It means people coming together and really fighting for these changes, and these types of changes are already happening in New York around the issue of utilities, and that's because there are organizers here who are, you know, demanding change around utilities from people in power. And just to leave us with an example to show that this type of organizing works, you know, last year through the budget, activists were able to push through something called the Build Public Renewables Act, which basically forces the New York Power Authority to build publicly owned renewable energy projects. And it also, this bill would also create an opportunity for the New York Power Authority to hold a larger role in offering publicly owned power. And that's something that was just passed in the budget last year. And we wanted to bring it up just to show you that change is possible if you fight for it. And it's so great that we're all here tonight to educate each other, to learn more about what we can do in the short term. And that's great, and we have to do that, but there's also long-term stuff, and wanted people to be aware of that also. So with that, I'll stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to Lori and to Andrew, and thank you both so much again for being here for the presentation.
Yeah, well, thank you, Cara, for hosting us, and thank you to everyone, Senator's staff, for putting this all together, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. My name is Andrew Saavedra. I'm legal aid at the Public Utility Law Project. I'm being joined by our executive director, Lori Wheelock. And I'm really looking forward to giving this presentation today. I think without further ado, I'm just going to share my screen so you all can see the slides. Nick, I can see you. Can you give me a thumbs up if this is visible? Awesome. Okay, so the goal of today is kind of like what it says right here. We want to shine a light on your rights as utility customers here in New York State. And we're just going to get started here. Again, my name is Andrew Saavedra. I use he, him pronouns. There are a lot of links here about our contact information. Like Cara said, this will be made available on Senator's YouTube page if you don't get this information down right away. But just, a little bit about who we are. We call ourselves PULP. We're the Public Utility Law Project. We are a 40-year-old organization, and our mission here in New York State is to educate, advocate, and litigate on behalf of New York State utility customers. And I'm going to stop sharing for just a second so I can fix the view here. Now it's full screen. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a lot of stuff here. We like to level set a bit and just sort of give everyone the lay of the land of what the current state of utility debt is in New York State. And once we do that, we'll start to get into some concrete examples of what you can do if you are one of the many people in New York State right now who are behind on your electric or gas bills. We're going to provide information on what sort of financial assistance programs might be available to you. And we're also going to explain what is a pretty integral part of the work we do at PULP, which is getting people into what are called deferred payment agreements with a utility in order to avert a shutoff for non-payment. We also want to highlight the fact that there are options outside of your relationship with your utility customer. There's an entity in New York called the Department of Public Service, and they regulate all the utilities in New York State. And if for whatever reason you were at an impasse and trying to reach a solution with your utility company, you have a right to go to the Department of Public Service and issue a complaint. And we're going to tell you how to do that. We're also going to tell you about the recent rate increase that you might have heard about on the news with your Con Edison bill, and you might already be experiencing that, receiving your monthly bills now, seeing that they've gone up. And we also want to highlight the fact that it's not just, unfortunately, your electricity rates that are going up, but National Grid, the gas utility in Brooklyn, has recently filed to increase their rates as well. So we're going to give you sort of an update on where that stands. And we also know that there have been issues in the senator's district that they've been made aware of, that a lot of people are having issues with their Con Edison meter. So we wanted to take a little time to talk about that as well. So just jumping right in, the most recent numbers we have right now for August 2023, which is a couple months ago, but even so, that's 1.34 million residential energy customers in New York State are at least 60 days behind on their utility payments. Taken together, that amounts to over $1 billion in total overdue energy bills. So if you are someone who is currently behind with Con Edison or National Grid, trust that you are not alone here, because there are a lot of households just like you who are struggling. Con Edison customers, you can see here, $554 million owed by Con Edison customers alone. National Grid in New York, that's another $139 million. All of these figures, the utilities are required to report on these and make them publicly available. So this data can be viewed on the DPS website. The case number is here. It's 91-M-074 if you're interested in digging into these numbers a little more. I think it's maybe also helpful to just take a step back even further, because when I talk about utilities and talk about energy, it's important to just, explain exactly what it is we're talking about. Because utilities are more than just, you turn on the light or, you turn on your stove. Water is also a utility, your internet is a utility. But today we are really focusing specifically on energy, and that's electricity, that's natural gas. Here in Brooklyn, that means Con Edison, it means National Grid. So there are existing rules and laws about when a utility can shut you off for non-payment.
Okay.
So if
What does it say to
if a
me?
customer, oh, and I think someone is maybe needs to go on. Okay, awesome. So if a customer can't pay their electric gas bill on time, it's not like, the bill is due on the 5th of the month and then the 6th of the month rolls around, you haven't paid. The utility can't just shut you off for that. Taken together with all these rules, the utility does have to wait at least 35 days after a payment is due to initiate service termination. So they can't take any action until your payment is at least 20 days past due. And even then, on that 20th day, if it's past due, then they have to issue a final termination notice. And for that to happen, they have to wait another 15 days after that termination notice is issued to actually shut you off. So together, that's 35 days that you have. And there are specific times, that utilities can shut you off. You can't be shut off on a Friday, first of all. It's only Monday through Thursday that you can be shut off for non-payment. And even then, that's only between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but unfortunately, we have heard of it with times when the utility does not honor these protections that are in place. And that's when you issue a complaint to DPS, because these are hard and fast rules about when the utility can do this. And so if they're not abiding by those rules, you have a perfect case to bring to DPS. And like I said, no terminations on Fridays. That also includes public holidays. It includes, beyond that, any days when the utility's main office is closed, which makes sense because when you're shut off, the first thing you want to do is call the utility. And if they're not open to take your call, they shouldn't be shutting you off that day. There's that time span, the 2-week period that's encompassing the winter holidays up to New Year's Day. No shutoffs allowed during then. And I also want to note that specific to Con Edison, so specific to you folks here in Brooklyn, Con Edison will not shut you off for non-payment on a day when it's 90 degrees outside. When it's forecast to be 90 degrees outside, because if, say, the 20th of the month is forecast to be above 90 degrees, they won't shut anyone off on the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, or the 22nd. And those are provisions that groups like Pulp and other parties have fought for in what are called rate cases, which we will again be talking about a little later. And so I mentioned this, that there are protections during the 2-week holiday period, but it does go a little beyond that. It's not a full moratorium though. So you may have heard that during the winter months, though, what's also called the heating season, there are additional protections against shutoff. And the heating season is defined as the time period between November 1st and April 15th. And during that time period, the utility, of course, still has that 35-day period that they have to wait. But in addition to that, during the heating season, the utility has to also try to contact one of the adult residents at the household, either by telephone or in person, 72 hours before they initiate a shutoff. And that's to see if there are any medical emergencies that exist, because any shutoff would exacerbate these medical emergencies. And so if that's the case, they're not going to shut you off. And they must also try to contact an adult resident by phone or in person at the exact time of shutoff. And so when we work one-on-one with customers throughout the state, and we've developed a sort of checklist for people who are worried that they've fallen behind on their monthly payments and they're really worried that they're going to get shut off. And so we developed this checklist of things you could do to try to avoid having your services shut off. And the first thing is pay whatever it is you feel comfortable paying. If you can't afford your monthly bill, maybe you could afford even as low as $5 that month. If you can spare the $5, go ahead and pay it. And that shows the utility that there is someone in this household doing what they can. They're aware that people have trouble paying their bills. We wish they were maybe a little more understanding about this, but just making that initial effort can show that you are doing the best you can. And beyond that, we encourage people to reach out to the utility and ask if there is a termination scheduled. And if so, when is that day? If the utility does have a date scheduled for shutoff, you can ask for a 30-day courtesy hold. And that's just, something that the utility might offer you because, you're trying to get your finances sorted, and they'll give you, an extra 30 days to figure all that out. That's an extra 30 days for you to have electricity or to have heat in your home while you're trying to figure things out. And by figuring things out, I mean looking for sources of financial assistance. The big one here in New York City is obviously HRA. But there are other, charitable organizations that exist. If you are working with us one-on-one, we will try to put you in contact with these other forms of financial assistance. And all that to say that if you've already done this, or if you're in the process of doing it, let your utility know. Again, that's just sort of an effort to make them aware that you are doing what you can to get them, the funds from the bill. It's also important to let the utility know if there's someone in your household who has a serious medical condition or is using what's called life-sustaining equipment, LSE. The utilities do want to know this, and it goes beyond shutoffs. If for whatever reason there is a blackout, or there's another hurricane or superstorm, and the utilities have to figure out who to focus on, when they're trying to get power back to everyone, they have to do what's called triaging, figuring out where to put all their resources first. They want to know if there are people in their service territory who have lost power, who have life-sustaining equipment that needs to be plugged in and on. Those people are going to get priority when it comes to focusing their efforts to get service turned back on. We're going to talk about this a little more in a second, but the deferred payment agreement. The utilities are supposed to offer customers who are falling behind on their payments what are called deferred payment agreements. If they haven't offered you one yet, you should ask for one. And I said this earlier, but maybe you consider filing a complaint with the Department of Public Service because all of these things you tried, for whatever reason, you're just not getting through to the utility. And again, the Department of Public Service is there to field these complaints and encourage the utility to work with you, the customer, to come to some sort of agreement. So I mentioned the financial assistance that might be available, and here is a list of the big ones that we point out to people. Top of the list is HEAP. Some of you may be familiar with HEAP. Maybe you've gotten HEAP in the past. It's the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. These are federal funds designed to help people pay for their heating costs during the winter months. HEAP is going to open this year in less than a month, November 1st, 2023. And you can, reach out to HRA, fill out an application, and hopefully get this credit to help pay your heating bill. You do have to be, it's income based, so you have to make below a certain threshold in order to qualify for HEAP. But if you do, and again, these are the HEAP benefit guidelines. These are for 2022 to 2023, so these might be updated before November 1st, but they won't be too different than what you see on the screen right now. And so we often tell people that, when you apply for HEAP, don't think of it as just a one and done thing, because there is such a thing as emergency HEAP. That doesn't open right away. It will open January 2nd of next year, but it is an additional grant that you can receive. There are additional requirements in order to receive emergency HEAP. You have to be at risk of shutoff. And so that means having received a shutoff notice from your utility. But if you have received that shutoff notice and it's past January 2nd of next year, you will be able to receive another grant through Emergency HEAP. HEAP also has, this isn't as relevant now that we're entering the colder months, but just as a reminder for next year, they do have cooling assistance. That is funds available to help people purchase AC units. That money, I will say, does run out fairly quickly. So if you are interested in receiving some help paying for the cost of an AC unit and you qualify for HEAP, you can receive cooling assistance starting in the spring of next year. And I would encourage you to apply, as soon as we know that program is opened. Beyond HEAP, however, there is something called the One Shot, and that's through HRA, New York City DSS, or the Human Resources Administration. You can go to HRA and request emergency energy assistance. And that is typically a grant paid directly from City HRA to your utility to help pay down some of the utility debt that you may have. And so we encourage people to apply for that if they feel they might be income eligible. And beyond what you can get through HRA, there are other charitable programs, non-governmental programs, either through religious groups, other nonprofits, 501c3s, or programs like HeartShare, which we talk to our customers about when we work with people one-on-one. And so some of you may be aware of this, but the utilities, Con Edison and National Grid, have low-income bill discount programs, monthly discounts on your regular electricity or natural gas bill, and these are called EAP programs, Energy Assistance Programs. And if you are currently receiving benefits from one of a list of eligible governmental assistance programs, SNAP, maybe you received HEAP last year, SSI, other sorts of governmental assistance programs, you're eligible for a reduction in the amount you pay Con Edison or National Grid each month. I'm going to go through both of the applications. They are fairly simple to fill out. And yeah, if you're not already in EAP, or maybe you don't know if you're in EAP, there are links to the application. You can fill it out in person and mail it in, or you can go on Con Edison or National Grid's website, fill it out online. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. The information will be made available to you if you want to reach out to us, though, or if you just want to look on the YouTube page when this comes up. But we also like to help people, kind of switching gears here a little bit. When you receive your bill every month, it's a lot of information presented to you. Like, you can see here in the top right that they do try to make it pretty clear how much it is you owe. But there's all this other information on here that the companies are required to provide to customers, but it can be very hard to read, very hard to understand. And so we do like to take a second just to show people what a bill looks like. And specifically, if you are curious, maybe you receive SNAP right now or SSI, and you're like, am I already in this program? There's a way you can check, and it is on your monthly bill. And it is highlighted here, and sort of driving the point, can you see where it's highlighted? Because if I didn't know where to look, I wouldn't see this highlight right now. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Next time you look at your bill, you'll see your new charges on the top left, and you want to be looking out for this thing called adjustments. And there'll be a line here, adjustments for this sample bill here. This person got $133.73 off of their bill, bringing their total amount due to only $34.69. And then if you go to the bottom right here, for Con Edison's bill, anything they deem important, they're going to have this little megaphone thing here. And so right here we see adjustment information. The adjustments amount includes a credit of $133.73 from the Energy Affordability Program. That's what you want to look for. If you're wondering if you're in EAP, you want to see something along these lines. Adjustments, Energy Affordability Program, something like that. If you do receive SNAP or some other government benefit and you don't see this on your bill, you are eligible to be in the program and you can apply to be in it. And you do that through Con Edison's application for the Low Income Bill Discount Program. Like the last slide, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. But again, this is just a one-page application. As far as these things go, it is fairly simple. So we see here, they want your name, benefit qualifying person. I'll come back to that because that's important. Your mailing address, apartment number, city, state, all that good stuff. They want your account number with Con Edison, and they want your email. And then the qualifying assistance program. You just check at least one of these boxes if you receive the benefit. If you received HEAP in the last year, you can check that. If you received SNAP, Medicaid, SSI, any one of these, check the box. And then, let's see if I can show this here. Alongside checking the box, you have to provide some form of proof that you do receive the benefit. And what they're looking for is an award letter or a budget letter, something you receive typically from HRA saying this person gets this amount of money for X amount of months, something like that. We can help people if you're working with PULP, we can help you find the award letter, or go to the place you need to go in order to request the award letter. But once you get it, you just attach it to your application, send it in. So I'll go back a little bit because there was this section here for benefit qualifying person. And I want to make this very clear because it's an important part of this application. It doesn't have to be you who gets SNAP or you who gets Medicaid. If someone in your household receives one of these benefits, your whole household can qualify for this bill discount. So if you have a kid who's on SNAP, or if you're living with an elderly relative who receives Medicaid or SSI or something like that, their name can be on this. You would just put it under benefit qualifying person, if different than customer, and attach their award letter with their name on it. So long as the address on the award letter matches the address for your Con Edison account, you're going to qualify for this program. And the same thing goes with National Grid. Their bills are a little bit harder to read, but if you're curious if you qualify for National Grid's EAP program, or maybe you want to know if you're already in it, you can do that by looking at your bill. It's just a little harder to see. So again, I'm going to zoom in here. I highlighted it here. Your cost is determined as follows, and it has all these cost adjustments here. And then, they could be a little better about making this clearer, but we highlighted it here for you. Energy affordability credit, $81.54 off of the total bill. And so if you see this on your bill, if you see energy affordability credit, that means you're enrolled in EAP program. And maybe I'll take a step back, because while we have this option to, apply for the program ourselves. What's a good thing about New York City is that every 3 months, every quarter of the year, HRA sends information to National Grid and Con Edison about the people enrolled in programs like SNAP or Medicaid or SSI. And that information just gets matched to the information that the utilities have. And so if they say, Andrew Saavedra receives SNAP, he is a National Grid customer, enroll him in your EAP program. So you may already be enrolled in these programs without knowing it. And that's a good thing. It was easy. You get the discount. You didn't even know about it. If you're curious, you can check the bill, look for something called an energy affordability credit. But again, if you're not enrolled in it, you think you should be, you can get National Grid's application. It's pretty much the exact same as Con Edison's, just a different color. And you've got the same boxes to check off. If you have a benefit qualifying person in your household, you fill it out in the same section as you would for Con Edison. Attach your award letter, send it in. So I mentioned before the topic of DPAs, or deferred payment agreements. And that's where we're going to go next. So what a DPA is a written agreement between you and your utility where you agree to pay your arrears or your utility debt over time, not all at once, over time. A DPA must be in writing. It's going to be signed by you and someone representing the utility. And in some cases, the company will require you to make a down payment in order to enroll in the DPA. Not always, but on some occasions. And on some occasions, the customer just cannot afford to pay a DPA. And so it must be tailored to your individual financial circumstances. By law in New York State, the lowest agreement that someone can enter into with their utility is an agreement to pay no down payment and $10 per month plus their regular bill. That's the standard lowest agreement that a person can enter into their utility. If, let's say, you can afford to pay more and you agree to enter into, a DPA that says, say, you pay $50 or $60 a month on top of your regular bill, but then maybe you lose your job or someone in your household loses a job or your hours get cut. Anything about your financial circumstances changes, you can amend your DPA with your utility as long as you can prove in some way that your financial circumstances have changed. And I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. If you are interacting with your utility, it could be specific to, renegotiating a DPA or getting into a DPA in the first place, and it's just like not going well, you are not seeing eye to eye with the utility, they're not being helpful, that's where you go to DPS. You can call their hotline, you can go to their website and file a complaint online or in writing, and that will encourage the utility to, really negotiate with you in good faith. So about that. When it comes to the DPS complaint process, we always encourage customers to try to work things out with the utility. Because if you go to DPS, usually the first thing they do is just immediately go to the utility and say, hey, work this out. So we encourage you to try that first. But then if for whatever reason the utility just is not resolving the complaint, that's when you should call the Department of Public Service. They have a hotline that you can call or a website where you can fill out a form and just explain what it is that's happening. And do make sure to save your confirmation number so you're able to follow up if you're ever curious as to what the status of your case is. Take a second, take a drink of water. That was obviously a lot, and I'm excited to answer any questions you all may have. My boss, Lori, is also in the chat at the moment, so if anyone is asking questions in the chat, she might be answering them. I'm not sure. But I wanted to talk briefly about what happened recently with Con Edison, the recent rate case, and the fact that you might be experiencing higher bills now. So it started in August. You may have seen this on your August bill and every bill since then. An average residential customer is going to experience an increase of $6 a month on their bill. That's going to increase again in 2024 and again in 2025. So by that year, it will be $18 a month over current rates. And that's 9% per year for an increase of 27% by 2025. We are seeing this with customers now. If you are experiencing, additional hardship as a result of your bills going up, we do encourage you to reach out to us to see what we can do to help. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news on this, but the troubles unfortunately don't end there, because as residents of Brooklyn, Con Edison is your electric utility, National Grid is your gas utility, and National Grid this year applied to increase their rates as well. They requested a double-digit rate increase. We are currently involved in the case right now, but that is going to amount to a 16% increase in annual total bills. If the company's proposal as written were to go into effect, that would mean an extra $27 a month on your if you are an average heating customer. So, if you're just cooking gas, it's going to be much less, but if you also heat your home with natural gas, that would be an increase of $27 a month over your regular bill. I should note that this is just an opening offer from the company. What is currently happening is parties enter negotiations. And so this final increase, or the final increase that comes out of this rate case, will likely be smaller than $27 per month. But we flagged this just so people are aware that that is what the company would like to do at this moment. It happened, as I said, it started this year back in April, and these processes usually take around 11 or 12 months. And so it's going to continue through the next spring, and potentially by next summer is when new, likely increased rates from National Grid will go into effect. So we're going to keep, we'll keep on this case for as long as it takes, and we'll provide updates when we can. But it's not all bad news, because you can make your voice heard in this. You can get involved and try to, alter the process as you would like. Public comment is now open in the National Grid rate case. If you want to leave a public comment, you can do so by phone at the number you see on the screen. You can do it online through the Department of Public Services website. It's a little involved here, but the directions are up on the screen now. You look for the case number, and then once you get to the case number, there is a button where you can post a comment. That is a public comment. The Public Service Commission does read every comment that's submitted on this and will take it into account when issuing their final decision next summer. So we encourage as many people as possible to make their voices heard here. In addition to calling or doing it online, you can mail physical public comment to the Public Service Commission. And we also want to flag that if you are interested in speaking about this in public, giving a public comment at a public hearing in person, they will be occurring. We just don't know when, but it's likely to happen in November. So we're going to stay in contact with the Senator's office about when these dates are scheduled, and hopefully, if you're interested in it, you can come by and make your voice heard in person. So before we wrap up here, there are just a couple more things I wanted to talk about. Like I said at the beginning, we know that a lot of people, not just in the Senator's district, but all throughout the city, have been experiencing issues with their electric meter. And so we just wanted to provide a little more context about what's happening on a broader level. So this started back in 2019. Con Edison initiated a plan to roll out what are called smart meters. So before the advent of smart meters, we had what most people know is, just a regular electricity meter. Numbers dials would spin on them. Every month, the person would come by and read it. And, that's how much electricity you use for the month. Smart meters are connected wirelessly back to Con Edison and provide, up to the minute information on the amount of energy being used, making, in-person readings unnecessary. And so that plan was rolled, it was approved in 2019. But then, of course, the COVID pandemic happened, and people were not doing in-person even readings. All bills were estimated. No one was going to places in person. But since then, the company has once again begun the rollout process. And by this point, pretty much, I'll say a majority of all the meters within Con Edison service territory, the majority of them are now smart meters. But, a lot of people are concerned about whether or not these smart meters are actually accurate, whether they're relaying accurate information back to Con Edison. People are worried that maybe they're overpaying because their meters aren't working correctly. You have options on, what you can do. And the first one is request a meter test. If you make a request to Con Edison, they will send someone out, a technician, to come and test the meter, see if it's functioning properly. There are also concerns that you might have what's called a shared meter. For whatever reason, your meter is wired to electricity that you yourself are not using. That may be, the lights in your hallway if you live in a big building. It could be the lights in the basement or some other common area. You might be wired to, someone else's unit, and you're paying for not only your own electricity, but for someone else's. If you want to, you can reach out to Con Edison and request a shared meter investigation. And the company will send a technician out and they'll test to see whether you're paying for electricity that you yourself aren't using. And I'll just say that if it does indeed come out to be the case that you have a shared meter investigation, or you do the shared meter investigation, it turns out there is a shared meter and you've been overpaying, you are owed a credit for the amount that is determined that you overpaid. And so before I end here, I just wanted to note that there are options beyond just trying to work out a deal with your utility. Like when we work with customers who are having issues, we want to solve the immediate issue first, right? Like we want to make sure that people don't ever get shut off, and we want to help people get a hold of their bills, take control of their electricity and natural gas bills. But we also want to point out to people the additional options they have once we get past those initial issues. And the big thing, especially for homeowners, is to make their homes more energy efficient. And there are several programs available through the state to help people make their homes more energy efficient. That includes not just solar, connecting to solar electricity, but also programs called Empower, where the state will send a technician or some sort of contractor out to your home to maybe replace your windows if they're drafty, replace your insulation, get you connected to higher efficiency appliances. If you are income eligible for these programs, all of this stuff would be free. You can even just get a home energy assessment to figure out where in your home could be potentially upgraded to make it more energy efficient and lower the amount that you pay going forward. And there's also the weatherization assistance program that does basically the same thing. So yeah, we try to provide a whole suite of options for people. And if you do reach out to us and work with us, we want to make sure that, like I said, you get a hold of your electricity and your natural gas. And with that, we've reached the end of the presentation. Thank you all for bearing with me.